I was terrified. That's what you clicked to hear, and Pinklon Thomas genuinely meant every word. He was talking about 5 heavyweights who scared him, fighters who brought different kinds of danger. Thomas faced them during the 1980s Lost Generation, and surviving against these men defined his legacy. Thomas was a technical master with an 81-inch reach and a jab Angelo Dundee compared to Sonny Liston's, but each of his 5 most dangerous opponents found ways to shut it down. Understanding why these fighters terrified Thomas requires looking at how each attacked his mind and confidence. Let me start with Mike Tyson. On May 30th, 1987, Tyson was a 20-year-old phenom already dismantling everyone in front of him. Thomas had faced world-class competition, but Tyson was different. He represented a shift from technical boxing to something explosive. Tyson trained under Cus D'Amato and Kevin Rooney in the peekaboo style. The mechanics of Tyson's danger were simple: constant head movement and rapid footwork. He neutralized Thomas's long-range jab by weaving and slipping low. Once inside, his compact frame was an advantage. He fired hooks and uppercuts larger heavyweights couldn't match. The speed was the real killer. Tyson delivered 15 punches in a flurry. In the early rounds, Thomas tested Tyson's ability to handle a world-class jab. He landed stiff lead hands that bothered the young champion, but Tyson's aggression intensified. Round after round, he walked through Thomas's jab. By round 6, Tyson unleashed a 15-punch combination that knocked Thomas down for the first time in his prime. What made Tyson uniquely terrifying wasn't just physical punishment, but the psychological weight. Tyson had brought boxing back into mainstream consciousness. He carried an aura of invincibility. Fighters faced him with a mismatch of expectations that worked entirely in his favor. Thomas survived more rounds than most and showed genuine talent, but the knockout in the 6th round was final and absolute. It signaled the end of Thomas's status as a top-tier title threat. Tyson would later say Thomas was his toughest opponent, a testament to the skill Thomas brought to a fight, ultimately defined by pure fear and raw kinetic energy. This brings us to Tim Witherspoon, a completely different archetype of danger. While Tyson was explosive, Witherspoon was exhausting. In August 1984, Thomas fought Witherspoon for the WBC title in a tactical marathon. Witherspoon was a 2-time heavyweight champion from Philadelphia, and his style was notoriously difficult to solve. The danger wasn't a knockout punch. It was mental fatigue accumulating round after round. Witherspoon's primary defensive weapon was the cross-arm defense. He tucked his chin behind his lead shoulder and crossed his forearms to protect his head and body. For Thomas, who relied on precision jabs to set up power shots, this defense was maddening. The traditional targets were obscured. Thomas needed constant adjustment and high-level focus just to land meaningful strikes. The danger was quiet and relentless. Every clinch was a wrestling match that sapped energy from his legs and arms. Thomas won that fight, out-jabbing Witherspoon for much of the contest. By the 2nd round, reports indicated that the volume of Thomas's jabs had Witherspoon blinking furiously. But Witherspoon never quit. He used backhand techniques and dirty tactics to disrupt Thomas's flow. The danger Witherspoon represented was different from Tyson's. He was never truly out of a fight. His experience made him a constant threat until the final bell. The majority decision reflected how narrow the margins were. Even when Thomas was technically ahead, the mental toll of Witherspoon's pressure was immense. Trevor Berbick introduced a different kind of threat. In March 1986, when Thomas was champion, Berbick came in with one goal: to break Thomas mentally. He had already defeated Muhammad Ali, so he had no fear of reputation. He was a Jamaican heavyweight who brought a mauling, relentless style. The danger Berbick posed was circumstantial. Thomas was navigating serious personal instability. He was battling a cocaine addiction. His marriage was falling apart. His primary trainer, Angelo Dundee, was absent. Berbick sensed this vulnerability and exploited it. He wasn't a clean boxer. He used his head, shoulders, and elbows to create chaos. For a stand-up technician like Thomas, this chaos was devastating. Berbick's strategy was to spoil Thomas's rhythm and turn the fight into a war of attrition. He mauled, he pressured, he created chaos where Thomas's technical superiority couldn't function. The upset victory by Berbick was massive. It cost Thomas his WBC title and momentum. The psychological scars were as deep as physical damage. Berbick had conquered the man, not just the fighter. Greg Paige represents a different danger entirely: underestimated precision. Paige is frequently described as the most naturally gifted heavyweight of the 1980s. He came from the Louisville boxing scene and sparred with Muhammad Ali. He was fast, skilled, orthodox, with an 81-inch reach matching Thomas's exactly. Thomas viewed Paige as a killer because of his ability to deliver surgical strikes with unpredictable timing. Paige's danger came from his pedigree. He was the #1 ranked amateur in the United States. He defeated future champions like Tony Tubbs and Smith. He won the WBA title by knocking out Quitzy. For Thomas, the hazard was versatility. Paige could move like a smaller man while hitting like a heavyweight. In 1990, Paige knocked down Mike Tyson sparring, something few believed possible. Thomas understood that against Paige, any technical lapse meant disaster. A lazy jab or dropped guard could be exploited by Paige's lightning-fast counterattack. Paige's danger was underestimated because his inconsistent record made opponents believe he was a safe fight. Then, they got dismantled. Thomas respected Paige for his technical skill and lethal unpredictability of his timing. Paige's later life carries tragic weight. After a catastrophic injury in 2001 during a fight against Dale Crow, Paige suffered a stroke during brain surgery and remained paralyzed. The venue lacked basic medical equipment. No oxygen, no paramedics, no ambulance. Paige died in 2009, and his legacy includes the Greg Paige Safety Initiative, a regulatory framework ensuring those medical lapses never happen again. For Thomas, Paige represented high-skill danger, a fighter who could end a career through technical brilliance or be ended by the sport's inherent risks. The final opponent is James Bonecrusher Smith, who represents the one-punch paradigm. Smith earned a business degree before pursuing professional boxing. Unlike Witherspoon's exhausting attrition or Berbick's psychological warfare, Smith's danger was pure and simple. He could end the fight with a single punch, regardless of scorecards. Smith's mechanism of danger was concussive power, particularly in his right hand. He could hurt opponents even when losing fights. His most famous demonstration was his 1986 knockout of Tim Witherspoon in the first round to claim the WBA title. This established Smith as a fighter who could change everything with a single engagement. For Thomas, Smith represented a binary situation. Either the jab was perfectly maintained and Thomas controlled distance, or the fight was over. Smith's power wasn't just for show, it was functional. Even when Smith was outboxed, even in his unification attempt against Mike Tyson, where he clearly lost, his reputation for bone-crushing power kept opponents defensive. Thomas had to respect Smith not for footwork or ring intelligence, but for the kinetic energy stored in his fists. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and Thomas could be knocked out. The presence of Smith in the division served as a constant reminder that in heavyweight boxing, technical superiority is always a single punch away from catastrophe. To understand why these five men were dangerous requires understanding Thomas's boxing architecture. Trained by Angelo Dundee, Thomas was a textbook stand-up boxer. His 81-inch reach was an asset, but his jab was the foundation of everything. That jab was called the door batterer. It was heavy and stiff and established his perimeter. When an opponent could neutralize this jab, the danger level increased exponentially. Mike Tyson used the peekaboo weave to slide under the jab and land short hooks. Tim Witherspoon used the cross-arm defense to catch the jab on his forearms. Trevor Berbick used mauling and dirty tactics to disrupt the distance necessary for a jab to work. Greg Paige used superior timing and his matching reach to counter jab and land precision rights. James Smith used pure intimidation and the threat of a counter right to make Thomas hesitant with the lead hand. Each opponent solved Thomas's technical problems in completely different ways. The synergistic effect of these threats created a division where Thomas was constantly required to adapt. His 1984 victory over Witherspoon represented his technical peak. He solved the cross-arm defense through superior jab volume and precision, but the subsequent losses to Berbick and Tyson revealed the limits of his style. Technique alone couldn't overcome psychological warfare or overwhelming kinetic energy. Subscribe to this channel and leave a comment on which of these five fighters was most dangerous. Was it Tyson's explosive fear, Witherspoon's exhausting pressure, Berbick's psychological warfare, Paige's precise timing, or Smith's one-punch danger? The comment section is where the real debate happens, and I want to hear your perspective on this era. The 1980s heavyweight division wasn't limited to danger inside the ring. The era was deeply intertwined with external hazards. Major promoters like Don King wielded enormous influence. Recreational drugs were pervasive in athletic culture. Thomas himself battled a cocaine addiction during his title reign. This internal danger compromised his ability to prepare for dangerous world-class athletes like Berbick and Tyson. Reports of Thomas selling cassettes for $5 during his title defense week illustrate a lack of professional focus that made the physical danger much more potent. The lost generation wasn't actually lost at all. It was a group of fighters whose potential was limited by external factors beyond the squared circle. Greg Paige's financial struggles forced him to fight long past his prime. Thomas's battle with addiction cost him focus and preparation. These non-pugilistic hazards were as dangerous as any punch from a heavyweight champion. Pinklon Thomas navigated a gauntlet of diverse threats throughout his career. He faced Mike Tyson's pure fear factor and survived longer than most. He out-jabbed Tim Witherspoon's exhausting defense. He lost his title to Trevor Trevor Berbick's psychological warfare, but proved his technical skill remained sharp. He understood the precision danger that Paige represented. He respected the one-punch threat that James Bone Crusher Smith embodied. These 5 men each represented a distinct archetype of danger. Tyson was the generational finishing instinct. Witherspoon was the quiet, exhausting danger of a tactical marathon. Berbick was physical and psychological warfare combined. Paige was the precision of an underestimated technician. Smith was the one-punch threat that could change a career in a heartbeat. Thomas's career is often overshadowed by the arrival of the Tyson era. Historians focus on Tyson's dominance and overlook the fighters who came before him. But Thomas's career remains a vital chapter in boxing history. He was a champion who faced diverse threats and navigated them with high-level technical skill even while battling his own personal demons. The fact that Thomas identifies these 5 men as his most dangerous adversaries is a testament to the depth and volatility of the 1980s heavyweight division. The era truly was a lost generation in terms of lasting fame and recognition, but in reality, it was a collection of some of the most dangerous and skilled fighters to ever compete for the World Heavyweight Championship. Thomas's survival and eventual redemption offer a narrative of resilience against both kinds of danger, the external danger of the ring and the internal danger of the self. He faced fighters who wanted to break his body and his mind. He faced personal demons that threatened to destroy his career. Through it all, he remained a technical master, a jab specialist in an era defined by explosive power and psychological warfare. The 1980s heavyweight division produced fighters who are often forgotten now, overshadowed by Tyson's later dominance. But for Pinklon Thomas, these 5 men weren't statistics or historical footnotes. They were genuine threats, obstacles that tested his skill and courage at the highest level. They were the heavyweights that terrified him most. What separated these 5 from other dangerous heavyweights was their ability to specifically target Thomas's weaknesses. Thomas relied on space, distance, and precision. He needed room to operate his jab and opponents to respect his reach and technical skill. But each of these 5 found ways to compress that space or neutralize the jab. Tyson did it through overwhelming speed and kinetic energy. Witherspoon did it through mental exhaustion and awkward defense. Berbick did it through mauling and psychological pressure. Paige did it through matching reach and superior timing. Smith did it through intimidation and one-punch danger. Collectively, they demonstrated that the lost generation heavyweight division had evolved beyond what the early 1980s technical style could consistently overcome. The legacy of these fights extended beyond Thomas himself. They shaped the trajectory of the heavyweight division for the entire decade. Thomas's loss to Tyson signaled that a new era was beginning. His loss to Berbick showed that even technical mastery could be disrupted by the right combination of factors. His respect for Witherspoon, Paige, and Smith showed that the division had depth. Boxing fans of the 1980s witnessed something special. They saw complete athletes who weren't one-dimensional brawlers or pure technicians. Tyson combined speed, power, and psychology. Witherspoon combined awkwardness, durability, and experience. Berbick combined mauling, psychological manipulation, and relentlessness. Paige combined precision, timing, and natural talent. Smith combined intimidation, power, and the threat of instant defeat. Thomas's career demonstrates why the 1980s heavyweight division deserves recognition and respect. He was a world champion who faced exceptional opponents. He won some fights through superior technique. He lost others because the opposition brought elements he couldn't overcome. Throughout his career, he carried himself with professionalism and respect for his opponents. Which fighter do you think posed the greatest danger? Which archetype of danger do you respect most in heavyweight boxing? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let me know if you think Thomas made the right choices in ranking these 5 specific fighters. The boxing community has strong opinions on this era, and I want to hear yours. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.